Do you want to know how a school teacher started a direct-to-consumer e-bike company that appeared on Shark Tank? Keep watching because we're going to find out. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I post a video each week and we talk about e-commerce, entrepreneurship, and you don't want to miss out on any of those videos. Why don't you just tell us when and why you started Bunch Bikes?
The idea for Bunch Bikes started in 2016 when we were on a family vacation, Denmark and Sweden, and I saw bikes like what we sell, these family cargo bikes, for the first time, and I just wanted to get one for myself. And so we came back, found that there wasn't anywhere that I could even buy one in the States, and I thought, well, this could be an opportunity. And so 2017 is when we got started.
And if I remember right, you said you were a teacher.
Yeah, that's right. We're going even further back. So that before that jewelry business, which I did for about 3 years, I actually started that on the side while I was teaching.
What were you teaching?
I was a high school and then a middle school band teacher. And I think I made the mistake maybe of calculating what my hourly wage was. Instantaneous switch in my brain, like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something else. So I took like 90-day maternity leave, unpaid, and started like researching products. What can I sell? I'd heard about FBA and Amazon. It's like, what can I do? And so I was like, I'd be up at like 2 a.m. rocking my daughter in the chair and like one hand over here Skyping suppliers and stuff. And like, and I found the Amber products like during that time period. Yeah. And then within a year, it was doing double my teaching salary.
Jeez.
So I was like, okay, so I want enough to cover my bills and then still have some left to put back into the business to grow it. So once my number was 2x, once I'm 2x my teaching salary, I'm out.
Jeez.
And so then it's like, I'm out. Let's go to Europe. Let's go on vacation, and saw the bikes and kind of went from there. So.
Sweet. So tell me about how much it costed you to invest. Like, what was the initial startup capital?
It actually wasn't that much because I kind of had this lean startup kind of mindset of like. Basically what I did is I launched the website. I took pre-orders, said, hey, you'll get your bike in 4 to 6 months. Smart. And because there was such an unmet demand, people were willing to put up money from a company that had never existed before, just to secure other people like me who wanted a bike, knew the bikes existed and couldn't get one. So I basically paid for that whole manufacturing run with customer money. And my money only ever came into play when I had to sign a lease on the warehouse before we got the bikes, or we had some quality issues in the beginning. So I had to kind of fix some of that. So I kind of continually put my money into it as needed, but it didn't need a whole lot. I mean, I probably only ever put 60,000 into the business total.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
Yeah.
Let's look at some Bunch Bikes and maybe show us around and show us what a Bunch Bike is.
Yeah, sure. So a Bunch Bike, it's an electric cargo bike. So you've got the battery and a rear hub motor. So as you're pedaling, it puts out power to make it easier. Otherwise, this bike would be so heavy and unwieldy to ride. But the front of the bike's got a box with 2 benches. You could put up to 4 kids in the front. And then, it's got a lot of utility. So for my family, it's effectively a car replacement because we live in an area where everything we need is kind of within 2 miles. So I can go get a full week's worth of groceries for a family of 4 in this bike.
So does the user have to? The user still pedals?
Yep. Yeah, you can pedal, and some people, if you want to get exercise or whatever, you can turn the motor off. You can ride without it.
What about for people starting a company? It's hard to imagine the challenges you'll face, and anybody who started a company knows there's lots of them. But when you started Bunch Bikes, what were some of the hardest challenges that you faced?
I learned the hard way 2 big challenges in the beginning. One is that when you're doing ocean freight, you got to plan way ahead. My first business, I would place an order of product. I'd have it in 5 days, Air Express. Yeah. So first planning. So I would have massive out of stock periods because I didn't plan 6 months in advance or more like I needed to. So that was a challenge. But then also just manufacturing was a big challenge. I did not vet my first supplier as well as I should have, but I didn't even know what questions to ask, or I didn't even know what to look for. Actually, the first batch of bikes I sold, which was 25, 30 bikes, I I actually ended up having to replace every one of those because they had a frame defect that we identified, and just out of an abundance of caution, because there's kids involved, it's like we want everybody to have a bike that's safe, that we can trust is going to be good. So I actually ended up switching to a different factory, and we replaced all their bikes.
So if somebody was starting with their first experience working with a vendor, what are some of the areas that you think are important or were important for you that you would suggest somebody ought to take a little bit more time?
Well, if you're going to invest heavily, and this is going to be your main gig, 100% go there in person first, because before that first order, I hadn't even been there in person yet. So that right away, there was a lot of red flags, just seeing visiting different vendors, and you can just see the difference when you are communicating with people digitally. Everything seems about the same, everyone has like kind of this nice polished front, and English speaking reps or whatever that promise the world, and there's a wide range of difference. So number one, you got to see it in person. Yeah. So I think product quality has got to be number one. You got to put in the time, or if you don't know, finding people who can help you out and give you the advice to plug in your knowledge. So
sweet. Let's just look at how you ship bunch bikes. Why don't you walk us through that and show us how they actually go to the customer?
Yeah, sure. So everything that we ship out, we ship fully assembled. So these are some that are ready to go here. So we've got custom made 96-inch pallets. And I mean, it literally goes to the customer just like this. Yes, so they had to be custom made because you can't make a contained box that size, really. So they just come in, it's actually faster to do it this way.
And are they different sizes then? I'd imagine you have different sizes, or are they all that same pallet size?
No, we all use the same pallet size.
That's pretty good in terms of
because we got multiple models, but they're all the same base bike. They've just got a different box on the front.
Got it.
So
tell me about COVID and how that affected your business, and in what way, and kind of what challenges, and how did you kind of work through COVID?
Man, COVID was it was a mix, It was, on the one hand, we had a big surge of demand in 2020 because suddenly nobody wanted to go work out in a gym. Nobody wanted to go anywhere. So outdoor recreation just went through the roof. So for the first month, nobody bought anything because everyone's like, am I going to lose my job? What's going to happen? So what should have been spring sales was nothing. We had nothing. And then all of a sudden we couldn't keep up. It just exploded almost overnight. To the point of we should have ordered 2 more containers a month ago when we were selling nothing, And so the whole industry worldwide did that, which made our lead times go from 90 days from placing an order to receiving the bikes to about a year. And so I very quickly had to come up with a lot of money to put into inventory that I didn't have, Otherwise we were going to be looking at, we're going to be out of stock next year for most of the year if we don't figure this out. So that's where investors came into play, and some SBA loans that came out around that time to help. But since then, it's continually evolved in different challenges. A lot of our costs have gone up. What I didn't expect was actually ocean freight costs went up 4x. So it used to cost $5,000 to get a container from Shanghai to here. Now it costs, at the peak, it cost $22,000. Now it's coming back down. It's $15,000 now. But
talk about revenue for 2021, and maybe even dipping into profits. What do you guys look for in terms of profit margins?
Our revenue last year was $2.7 million. Margins, so our landed margin, basically if you take FOB cost plus ocean freight plus tariffs to retail, is 55 to 60%. But for the books, we actually, take out shipping to customer, we take out credit card processing, all that. And so that ends up being about 35% all said and done on gross profit.
Yeah.
So
that's still really healthy. Tell me about your website, what shopping cart platform you chose, and how you got that up and going.
Yeah. So our website, bunchbike.com, it's on Shopify. And I picked that in the beginning because it seemed the most plug and play for a guy who doesn't know a lot about coding or web development like me. in the beginning, I had this idea of, well, we're going to be selling an expensive bike online that nobody's heard of. So the website's like, it's got to be good. There's got to be good photos to build that trust. So, that was actually my biggest expense in the beginning was I paid like $10,000 to guys to custom build me a website that looked great at the time. And so what I wish I would have done is just used a plug and play theme, put it in, had everything built in that you need for future proofing, and just built off of that. Because especially even now, 5 years later, the tools to build your own website, having no skills, is just getting better and better and better and easier.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, including ourselves, we spent a lot of money too in the early days. And then like, I don't know, a year later, you're revamping it all, or it's not working the way you want it to. So I think a lot of people too are set on like, I have to go. Like, it feels like you're working, like if you're spending and investing early on in your website. But I think that's not. Actually, by the forklift.
It's always a good shot.
Yeah, I always felt like when I was buying forklifts, I knew I made it. So tell me about employees. How many employees do you have? What do they do? And maybe roughly kind of on an annual basis, how much you budget for salaries?
Got 8 full-time in addition to me right now. And so we've got kind of employees that are directly tied to our sales, which is our assembly guys, Lydia, warehouse manager, who basically is managing fulfillment and shipping of stuff. So as sales grow, that kind of grows along with it. Customer service as well. And then we've got product manager who's working on product improvements, technical documentation, supplier relations, that kind of thing. And just end of last year, I hired a chief operating officer who basically is taking all the finance and operations and purchasing, all that kind of stuff off of my plate, and forecasting all that stuff, so where I can focus more on the sales and marketing side of the business. But all in, last year we spent about $500,000 on salaries and benefits and everything that kind of goes into it all in.
Talk to me about how customers are finding you. How do they find you, or how do you find them?
Our biggest driver right now, or one of them, is actually word of mouth. So the bikes are big, they're visible, and when our customers get them, they're super excited and they talk to everybody about it. So about 25% of our sales is actually word of mouth, either just kind of growing organically. If I did nothing else, like that's still happening. And the more bikes we get out there, the more that increases. Also, because there's not a lot of competition in our space, like we've gotten quite a bit of like PR coverage and like different websites. So if you do a Google search for kind of any keyword for this niche, you're going to come across either our website or somebody who's talked about us that then links to our website. So that's like another, like at 40 to 50% is like Google search and like PR and like other websites. And then we've got like another 15 to 20% that's driven by advertising. So now going forwards, I'm looking at SEO and content marketing. We just started content writing this week, just to kind of, one, educate current customers, prospective customers, but also to, get into Google's algorithm. We've also got an ambassador program where you can actually go online and meet up with somebody in your city who is a customer, test ride the bike. And so that is kind of goes in the word of mouth thing as well, but it's more structured than that, more intentional than that. And so we're actually investing into that program this year. So by the end of this year, we hope to have 100 ambassadors around the country. Next year, we want to have 200 to 300. And actually, I'm just now starting to look into short form video, Instagram Reels, TikTok. That's what a lot of the social algorithms are driving. Feed posts are going by the wayside. Everyone's driving to the video. So I'm building a content strategy around what can we do with short form video that would be interesting to people, that would get picked up. And we're going to start rolling that here next month. So.
Very cool. Talk to me about customer service. What goes on with customer service? How do you take care of your customers?
So that's our number one core value is to exceed our customer expectations. To provide these exceptional experiences. So my approach to customer service has always been not only addressing the customer issue, but for them to walk away at every touch point with us surprised at how good that interaction was. And we consistently get reviews that say, like, this is how it should be done. I've never had an interaction with a company that went this well. And so what that does is basically takes a happy customer and turns them into like an ecstatic customer who's more likely to share with others. I almost view customer service as a marketing channel. Like I put it under marketing because the way we serve our customers, I mean, even a bad experience, oftentimes they turn into the best advocates because we go above and beyond. So I've got a generous return policy too. Like it is complicated to ship these bikes, but we figured it out logistically to make it work to where, hey, within 14 days, if this is just really not working out for you, like you're buying a bike online, you didn't have a chance to test ride it, it's not working out, send it back. And we'll sell those on clearance or whatever. Like we're not losing money on them. We're able to then turn it around, sell it to somebody else, just fixing it up here or whatever. So like just being basically willing to work with our customers and go above and beyond every step of the way. It's been huge and really helped us build a loyal following early.
It's so underrated. And for founders, like I had somebody who I was talking with and they were like, well, what do I do with customer service? Like I got to hire someone for that. It's like, no, not at the early stages. Like that's your opportunity, is to turn like bad experiences into super fans. Yeah.
And I think it's bad for a business owner to get too out of touch with customers.
Exactly.
So even though I'm not doing it every day, day to day now, whenever our guy is out, I'm the one filling in. I'm not handing it off to somebody else. Like I'm filling in because it's a good opportunity for me to re-engage with customers. What are the problems? What are our customer service people dealing with? What problems can I make permanently go away for everybody? Like, it's always, and what product ideas, to come out of that also.
So lots of parts and spare pieces. How do you manage inventory?
Manage is a funny word. We implemented an inventory system last year called Unleashed, and basically it's just the Shopify inventory management. It's not wonderful for managing spare parts, things that are not customer facing. It's all like the nuts and the bolts, the random battery chargers, the spare spokes, all the warranty issues we might have with a bike. We got to have spare parts for all that. So just having a robust inventory management system that, we're able to track. And then for like kind of consumable stuff that has short lead times, we actually have what's called a Kanban system. And this actually this is a concept that Toyota does. What we have is like on all these products that we can get kind of within a week or so, we have these reorder cards stuck in. So we've got a minimum stock quantity. If you're below 15, you're gonna pull that card. You're gonna take it over here, and it triggers a reorder. So our purchasing guy, he's going to go through, and we tried it even digitally too. And something about having a physical thing that's just like, oh, I pull it. Oh, I've got the card. Okay, time to reorder those.
You were on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
You got on Shark Tank. Tell me what that process was. For any viewers who are thinking about, I'd love to get on Shark Tank. Maybe walk through just quickly how that happened.
My process for getting on the show is pretty straightforward. One, I didn't think I'd ever get on Shark Tank. So one of my employees really pushed me to just apply. So just to shut her up, I fill out the application online. It was like 5 questions on the ABC website. And I was like, okay, there, I applied, leave me alone. And then they actually called me and then followed up, and they thought something was interesting there and it kept going. But they also have like live in-person auditions that you can go to. But I think there's 2 key elements that go into any successful Shark Tank appearance they're looking for. One is you got to have a good story and a good reason for having the business. And the other is it's got to be an interesting, unique, different product they haven't seen before. They like to have a variety. I knew my bikes at least were visually interesting, and so that played a part as well. And then I guess if there was a third piece, you got to have a good personality because you've got to be entertaining to watch for 20 minutes.
And so how did it end up? Did you get a deal? How did that work out?
Yeah, we got a deal on the show. Did a deal with Barbara for 15% of the company. And actually behind the scenes when we were in due diligence, Robert Herjavec, who was not on my panel, was just into the product, interested in it. So he actually came in and split the deal with her 50-50 behind the scenes before we closed, which is the only time in Shark Tank history that's ever happened where somebody not on the panel actually invested as well.
So tell me about just entrepreneurship in general. What's been your biggest struggle?
The biggest ongoing thing is just coming up with the will to continue and push through obstacles. The biggest thing I went through in the last year was just not having really an emotional support system for just after the crucible of COVID and supply chain issues and stuff. I was really burnt out last summer, and I'd never experienced that before, just because I didn't have anyone really to share that that leadership load with. Like, I was spending like 80% of my time doing things that I'm like no good at, and it was really frustrating for me. And so ultimately the solution there was bringing in the COO kind of to share responsibilities on those things, somebody who is good at those things to lighten that load, and somebody who, when I'm having, struggling or whatever, they're up and they can help pull me up, So I think if I could go back to the beginning, man, maybe even having just a partner or somebody I started the business with that I could have bounced I could have bounced that off of, but it's just the continual dealing with problems and just coming up to face another day. Like that's kind of the ongoing, burden of the entrepreneur, I guess.
So for someone who wants to start an online business, I'm sure you've run into a lot of them who say, I'd love to do what you're doing. I'd love to have a D2C company. What one tip would you give that person who's just thinking about it?
My one tip would just be work on a product that you're personally interested in and would even be a user of, because that's where you're really going to find unique value that you can add to that space. Do not just be a Me Too copycat, like, hey, that looks cool, I'm going to copy that business and do that also. You need to have something unique, and if you're a user of the product or specifically interested or passionate about that category, you're going to have a million ideas that will never run out and will continually improve your product. So I guess that'd be my tip right there.
Very cool. Let's keep walking this way. With business, it's easy to look at numbers and see the direction of how things are going. But if you step out of business, if we just kind of look at life in general, how do you define success?
So for me, I have business, I have my family and my kids, and then those are really the only success metrics I set for myself. Am I being involved? Am I putting in time as a dad? And do my kids feel like they're getting enough out of me that they need? So how I define success, well, one, am I able to, anything that I'm putting into, for me it's business and family, am I able to do those at the highest level? Can I be the best at those things? Because I'm not out in business to be average or unexceptional. I want to be the best in our category. I can't do anything halfway. So I have to free up my schedule enough to be able to do that and invest the time into that. But I don't have hobbies. I don't hang out with friends often, because any remaining time I have family, because I want to be like the best dad. And so I go home from 5 to 9 p.m. My phone goes in the closet. I don't do any work. Weekends, anytime after 10 a.m., laptops closed, I'm with the kids, because that's the time that they have with me, and we're going out and doing things. If they're on spring break, like they just we're going to go do something cool, and I'm going to take a day or two off of work and invest with them, because like that's time you never get back. And so as long as I'm being consistent with what I say I want to be, a good dad, then I define that as success. And I think I used to define it as like an outcome, like, when I achieve this level, then I'll be successful. What I've realized is that there's always another level. There's always another set of problems to solve. And the kids are getting older, the business goes on, and you need to feel successful in the moment while you're doing it. So how do you define success in the moment? And for me, it's almost time allocation. Am I doing what I need to in the business to get my stuff done so that I can go home and not have to worry about it? But everything's continuing to go up,
Yeah.
Then that's really, I guess, how I define it.
Amazing. This is exciting, and what you're doing, and it's very cool. So thanks for letting us hang out, and thanks for sharing all that you shared today.
Yeah, man.
Cool. Well, that's it. Thanks for hanging out at Bunch Bikes with us. A big shout out to Aaron for letting us spend time with him this morning. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like button. Remember to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.